Now, the candidate of the Social Democratic Party in the November 11, 2023 governorship election in Kogi State, Murtala Ajaka, has alleged that the election was rigged in favor of Usman Ododo of the All Progressives Congress, the APC. Ajaka said going to court to contest the outcome of the poll is a waste of time, as the Independent National Electoral Commission would come as a witness to defend the outcome of the poll itself. Now, INEC declared Ododo as the winner of the keenly contested poll, who won with 446,237 votes, defeating his closest rival, Ajaka, who scored 259,052, while Dino Melaye of the People's Democratic Party polled 46,362 votes. But Ajaka claimed figures were inflated in favor of the APC candidate and ally of the outgoing governor, Yahaya Bello. Now, joining me to have this conversation is Prince Adewole Adebayo, the SDP candidate in the 2023 elections, who will shed more light on that. Thank you so much, Prince Adewole, for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure as well. Now, Prince Adewole, you are one of those who have the opinion that figures were inflated in the elections. Can you provide specific evidence or examples that you've seen to support the claims that the election was actually rigged in favor of the candidate of the APC?
Okay, now we are not in the business of allegations. I was not there. And I believe our governorship candidate was also confined to his own polling unit and his own residence. But INEC itself was showing the accreditation numbers as at the time the results were being declared. And what we observed was that, one, there was an unusual, unprecedented, almost magical turnout, where Okene local government alone is bringing far over 100,000, almost going to 130,000. That's unusual, and we couldn't see the feasibility of the people there. Second point was that INEC's own accreditation records are far below that of the result being declared. So what we did was to raise an alarm immediately to INEC, because under the law, the number of voters cannot exceed, even by one, the total number of accredited voters. So what INEC did thereafter was to say that even days after the election had been concluded and the winner had been returned, that the Beavers machine, which was used for the accreditation, was still declaring, was still synchronizing, sending in more accreditation numbers. But our argument is that, one, in many of those places, INEC itself on its website, on its IREV, says that accreditation synchronization was complete. So why is the number now changing thereafter? Secondly, if it's the case that maybe as at the time we were raising alarm about overvoting, the accreditation synchronization had not been completed, we wrote to INEC to review and come and show us how that system has worked. Because under the law, INEC has 7 days with which to review, and the 7 days will elapse tomorrow. And we wrote to them as far back as 5 days ago on Monday. So INEC has not responded and has not taken up the offer. Thirdly, if you look at other places where Beavers machines were also used, there was no synchronization after the results, which is to the volume that you find in Okehi, in Adabi, in Okene local government, and environs. So that's our point. So it's not like we are sitting down in our offices or homes and conjuring accusations. We are using INEC's own contractual records to challenge INEC to straighten the records.
Right. All right. Now, as you very well know, Prince Adewole, this is not the first time we're having, issues or reports of inflated figures during elections. What do you think can be done or should be done to address the concerns of inflated figures and ensure that there is fair and transparent elections in Nigeria?
Well, on the part of everybody, especially the politicians, who are the one who demand cheating, it is just to produce politicians of the category and caliber that will not be dishonest and greedy and without conscience. That can be done by improving those who contest, those who are the political party. But more easily done is for INEC to not lend its processes to abuse and not lend its processes to lack of transparency. The problem I personally have with INEC is their unwillingness to make a system that is designed to be transparent. For example, if you are saying that the synchronization has not been completed, you needed to say so as at the time you are declaring the result. To say that the result I'm declaring will show some numbers that are above the accredited, but the accredited synchronization on the IRF is still ongoing. They didn't say that. So it looks to people that INEC just went back as an afterthought to try to cover up the track. So I'd have to be rational, and I believe that the rest of the SDP, the leadership, the candidates, we're all rational people. What we are doing is to make sure that we don't falsely accuse anyone of something which later we'll find out that they did. But it's very clear that INEC has more questions than answers. And INEC is running away from going through a process which can audit the activities and audit the result. And we had offered to INEC that if you do a review and the review shows to us that there's nothing amiss, then we are fine, we'll leave it. But INEC is goading people into going to court, knowing that the IRF, the beavers, all these systems have no legal backing. But INEC is advertising them for people to rely on them. But they are under INEC's full control. INEC is the administrator. INEC is the one who can input and output. INEC is the one that can turn them on and off. INEC is the one that can slow them down or speed them up or synchronize or mis-synchronize them. But INEC is saying, because of these beavers and IRF, you can rest assured that there will be no problem with elections. But in reality, when you try to use evidence for or against INEC in IRF, the court will not recognize it because as far as the court is concerned, IRF and all of that, that's just business of INEC. It has no legal teeth. And that is, so INEC knows that if you are cheated through IRF, cheated through beavers, there's no remedy for you. And if you go to court, then the court will say you have no proof for anything because what you can do, which is what we have done, is to write to INEC and say, give us all the evidence. So the evidence you want to use against INEC, you still need to rely on INEC to bring the evidence out. So that is where the challenges are. But there isn't anything you can do other than to make sure that those who run INEC are credible people and to make sure that other methods are added, but they're not useful now. But in future, other measures can be added, which would allow members of the public to know what happens in polling units and get overinflation or overvoting to be removed. But until then, we are stuck with it. And we need to now start using advocacy and putting pressure and getting people to speak out. That's all we can do at this point.
Right. Now, we're still talking about INEC and credibility. I mean, it's very obvious that it looks as if INEC has lost, there's a level of distrust now, from the people, Nigerians generally, and it doesn't seem, it's now reflecting on the voter turnout, especially the ones we've recorded in the governorship elections that just was recently concluded. Now, if we're to assess this situation as it is right now, do you think that this will affect voting in the near future? Do you think that people will be reluctant to vote because of these things that have happened and because of that distrust that has still not been, resolved? There's still that distrust, and INEC has not done anything to prove Nigerians wrong.
You see, first and foremost, the problem with INEC is not that INEC has credibility problem. It is that INEC is not interested in credibility. In fact, I think I am more interested, I am more protective, I am more supportive of INEC credibility than even the INEC chairman and the commissioners themselves. It looks to me that they don't care. Because if they do care, they will take opportunities to explain themselves. And SDP is behaving in a manner that is very gentle and very civil with INEC. And we're doing everything possible to give INEC an opportunity to make good its name and to come out and say, oh, SDP, your suspicions are wrong or your accusations are not correct. Look, this is what happened. And we are going through a review. Come to our offices, we'll go through the review with you. They are not interested. So INEC, from what I'm seeing, the leadership of INEC now appears to think that, look, if people are disinterested in the election, if they get discouraged, the better. In that way, if you don't show up, your turnout is low, then they cannot actually just use the opportunity to inflate the figures. So even though only 10% of the voters electorate turnout, they will still return fantastic figures up to 60%, 70%. So it doesn't appear to me, and I hope I'm not being unfair to them, but it doesn't appear to me as if they care at all about credibility, about the image, about legacy, about anything at all, about INEC as an institution funded by the taxpayer, owned by the public, and through which leadership of the country is being selected. They don't care. And that is a tragedy of a different dimension. But I can tell Nigerian people, don't say because of this, you refuse to vote, you refuse to come out, you lose interest in government, you lose interest in the institutions, you lose interest in democracy. We will be the loser. Every time it happened to us in Ekiti, it happened to us in other places, it happened to us in the presidential election. Every time we come together, ordinary people, professionals, and there are no big wigs and tycoons in SDP. We are mostly professional people, lawyers, engineers, all sorts of teachers, and all of them are traders. We come together, we use our resources, we invest in elections, we put people on the road, we do everything, and then somebody comes and uses the systems, excuse me, less than transparent, less than credible, to declare any result and say, to hell with the rest of you. So that can be discouraging, but don't be discouraged, because the future democracy lies with the people. INEC was set up as a midwife of democracy. But INEC wants to make itself the undertaker of democracy, and we should not allow that to happen, because that institution is very germane, and democracy as a whole is the only alternative that we have now to be able to get things right. I grew up under military rule. I was born under military rule. When I was born, Gawon was head of state. I grew up under military rule, and I've seen that there's nothing good coming out of unelected governments. So we need to invest in democracy. The issue with democracy is that those who benefit from dictatorship, benefit from a broken down system, know that democracy empowers the people. So what they will do is to make the democracy so unworkable that the people will lose interest in it. So, but people should not lose interest in it. So for every election in which you are cheated, even come in larger numbers next time. So to the point where we can overwhelm them. And that is what I think is the solution. Other than that, there's no room for a citizen to let his country go to rot.
All right, Prince Adewole, very quickly. Now, it seems as though to a lot of Nigerians, there's now this, lax attitude when it comes to elections, especially, from candidates and all that. It's like people have gotten so used to and so comfortable with inflating numbers, influencing election results. And at the end of the day, when you find out that they're not comfortable with it, there's one mantra that people keep saying, go to court. So a lot of people are now speculating that the judiciary is compromised. It almost looks as if the electoral practices and the judicial proceedings are working in tandem. Do you think that the judiciary in Nigeria is compromised?
The judiciary is not compromised, but the judiciary is implicated, because the legal process for litigating elections outcome does not give the judiciary enough room to go outside the petition and to go outside the grounds stated in the Electoral Act, in Section 134, for challenging an election return. So those who are rigging elections, those who are causing problems, have understood that legal regime. So what they do is that they do it in such a way that the reasons why you lost the election are difficult to present to the court. So in some instances, for example, people pay bribe, corrupt practices, bribe some voters, bribe election officers. If you go to court to say such a thing, you have the duty to bring all the exhibits to the court, to bring videos to the court, to bring, many of those things are not available. So they get away with that. Then in the manipulation of the election, now they have taken it electronic. So it's gone electronic. So now you use beavers to accredit. When we used to use paper to accredit, all of us had access to the paper. And at the end of the accreditation, you can tear up the paper and give each person a copy. But now you're using beavers. INEC is the only one who knows what the beavers means. If INEC comes with a POS device and writes beavers on it, you don't know. When INEC person says, I press the button, it's synchronizing. INEC can say the network does not let it work. So when you raise all of these issues, when you take these issues to the court will not listen to you. So in this 2023 election, right from the presidential election to now, there have been very few petitions that are competent before the court. Right. And the court cannot say they are now activists on their own, that any case or evidence that's not before them, they are going to go and give you judgment. For example, judges, anybody on the street knows that something has gone wrong in Kogi State. But the judiciary will be waiting for SDP to bring our petition. And if we don't get proper evidence, or we don't construct our petition in a manner in which the law can give us remedy, after blaming INEC now, we will now be forced to blame the court. But the courts are not to blame, because the courts are not designed to supervise INEC. The courts are designed to listen to complaints. And if INEC trick you, deny you evidence, and so much confuse you that you are not even able to know how INEC committed all the fraud that they committed, and you come to court and make bold claims over voting, irregularities, corrupt practices, the court will be waiting for you to bring them item by item. You have to say, in Okehi local government, so primary school, this is what happened there. You need all of that evidence line by line. And ordinary people who know that something has gone wrong, who hear of it in the media, who see it all around, when they now hear the judgment later, they will conclude that the judiciary compromised. But in reality, the judiciary is not going to rely on that thing that's going on in the media, right, or what is you saw on the ground. The judiciary will only rely on what is inside your affidavit, the evidence, the pleadings before it, and that is where you will see that lawyers, the parties concerned, make a lot of mistakes, and the judiciary will just let it go. But the last point I need to know on this point is that by law, the judiciary is forced by our law to recognize anybody whom INEC has declared. So the court is supposed to believe that INEC declaration is correct. It is not the case that INEC will say, I don't know whether INEC is right or wrong. No, the court is forced by law to start every proceeding on the basis that whatever INEC declare is correct until the challenger or petitioner can convince the court otherwise. Right. And in convincing the court, in some of them, you need to bring proof beyond reasonable doubt. Because if you say there is, for example, overvoting, you are saying that a crime has been committed. If you say there is corrupt practice, you are saying a crime has been committed. So you will need to bring proof beyond reasonable doubt. Proof that is strong enough to send someone to prison. And that's a very high proof. If you are complaining about other things generally, that numbers don't tally, this and that, you need to bring your proof beyond the balance of probability. But the presumption at the beginning of every hearing, in the eye of the court of Nigeria today, is that Ododo of APC has been duly elected. So they are waiting for SDP and Murtala Ajaka to bring evidence that will let the court change his mind. Okay. That is the legal system. So the court is not compromised, but the legal system is unfair to petitioners and highly biased in favor of INEC.
All right, Prince Adewole Adebayo, thank you so much for the clarification, and thanks for your time with us on the news.
Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.